Joining me today on Midnight Mania Sports is NFL Network analyst and fantasy expert Adam Rank. Thank you for taking time to call into the show, Adam.
Austin, the privilege is all mine. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Adam, let's start with your personal journey to where you are now covering fantasy football for the NFL Network. What was your journey like to get to that point?
It was interesting. It was really something that I always wanted to do. I always wanted to be a part of sports. I think when you're a certain age, when you're young enough, you're dumb enough to believe that, I can play professional sports. I'm good. And then the reality sets in. And for some people, it's a little bit earlier in life. It's a little bit later in life. I didn't get past the high school level, so I was fortunate in that aspect. So I was like, okay. So I was in college, thought maybe I could play at Cal State Fullerton for baseball. Turns out that's not the case. I was not that good. So it did just set me into a path of like trying to figure out other ways to be in the sports industry.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was kind of a natural fit. One of my friend's mothers, who was an educator, I was talking to one time during one of our breaks over Thanksgiving or whatnot. And she just suggested, she's like, why don't you go into journalism? That was one of your strengths in high school, because she was an educator.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, you're a good writer. She's like, you should give that a shot. And I'm like, can you really major in that? Because nobody in my family had gone to college. So I went after it that way, started writing for the school paper, writing for the LA Times, covering prep sports, got an internship with the NFL. And part of it was kind of funny because the guy who was doing the interviewing was an old LA Times beat writer. So my interview was pretty much, hey, does this person still work there? Did you know this person? And it was a lot of that. And then next thing you know, I had an internship. I did that for a couple of years. And then after the third year of doing this internship with the publishing group, I realized I was done with school. And I'm like, I was hanging out and I'm like, I should just show up tomorrow and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And it was a Sunday afternoon. And I'm like, yeah, let's just see what happens. And then I showed up, none the wiser, and, just sat, kept working. And so fast forward, a number of years, I started working with the NFL media group in general, doing some stuff with the AP desk, taking stories off the wire and turning those into articles that we would publish on NFL.com. I said, hey, man, I want to do something different. They said, well, if you want to write about fantasy football, that's all you. And then from that, we started doing we started doing like on-demand videos, which went to a weekly show on Sunday mornings, which went to a daily show every day of the week except for Saturday. And now here it is. Now I'm sitting here getting roasted on the internet for making predictions about the 49ers and whatever, but hey, it's been cool. Sorry if that was long-winded.
No, that's fine. That's awesome though, Adam. And right now is one of the busiest times to be covering the NFL as the offseason's underway, and one of the biggest moves so far in the offseason has been Tom Brady joining the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What is your overall reaction to Brady heading down to Tampa Bay?
It was a little bit of a shocker for me. I was convinced that he was going to remain with the New England Patriots. Us old guys, Tom Brady and I, same age, so we're a couple of boomers who don't like change. So listen, when I got to get a new phone, I'm so upset. I'm like, oh my God, I got to reinstall this. I don't want to deal with it. That's why I still have a flip phone.
Right.
So, I have a Galaxy 10.
All right.
But anyways, but it doesn't, when you look back at it now that he signed with Tampa Bay, it does make a lot of sense. The receiving core for the Patriots over the last couple of years has left a lot to be desired.
Right.
I know last year they tried to make it work with Antonio Brown. They brought in Mohamed Sanu on a trade, which I thought was going to work out a little bit better, but obviously that didn't work out. So when you look at it, an opportunity to play with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, have Bruce Arians designing an offense, it seems very attractive. And if they're going to pay you a lot of money to do it, to try something new, then why not? I think now, looking back, it makes total sense.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, this is what he should have done. And and it's not unusual for these great quarterbacks to switch teams. I mean, some of the best in the game have done it. Guys like Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, Jay Cutler, they've all finished on different teams than what we were accustomed to.
Right.
And yeah, I just snuck in Jay Cutler too. Don't
I was gonna say Jay Cutler in Chicago.
Listen, Austin, don't.
I mean, Bears do have a new quarterback this year, potentially replacing Mitch Trubisky. How high are you on Nick Foles being acquired from Jacksonville?
I kind of like it. The best Bears quarterbacks of my lifetime have been Jim McMahon, Cutler, and Walter Payton on the halfback option, and that's it. Like it has not been great for us. And I understand. It's kind of like, I don't know if you're old enough to drink, Austin, but it's kind of like sometimes you'll run out of beers. You're hanging around, you're quarantined. It's you and your wife just hanging out. And you're like, we're out of beers, and then you're rummaging through the fridge and you find a Miller Lite that somebody left there 6 months ago, and you're like, look, this might not be my first, second, or third choice, but for right now, this is pretty good. And that's kind of how I feel about Nick Foles. I might have waited to see if Cam Newton was going to be coming available or something like that. But I think that given the familiarity that Nick Foles has with the coaching staff, that they're probably bringing him in of the mind that he is going to be the starting quarterback at some point. He might not start week one, but we could see a situation where Nick Foles goes in there and Tannehill's Trubisky if he doesn't get it together. And so for the Bears, you look at it and you're like, look, either Mitch crushes it, he steps up to the challenge and they win 12 games, or else Mitch does not step up to the challenge and Foles comes in and leads them to the playoffs. So I think it's a good risk for me, even though I've fourth round pick was a little expensive. But hey, that's the cost of doing business sometimes.
Right, and you mentioned Cam Newton, who is currently a free agent after being released by the Carolina Panthers. Where do you see Newton landing, and what team is the best fit for Newton this offseason?
This is the wildest thing, Austin, is trying to figure out, because a lot of times these guys get released or they're going to be traded, and you're like, oh, well, this player would be great here, or this would be a prime opportunity. You don't get a lot of that with Cam Newton. I truly believe he should be a starter in the league, but where is that going to happen? Like, could he go to New England? I don't know. I think that Bill Belichick is probably going to either go with Jarrett Stidham to troll us all, or Brian Hoyer, or do something completely ridiculous, or Cam Newton's probably going to have to do what Tannehill did last year and start somewhere as a backup quarterback. If you think about some places where the starter might be a little shaky, you could think of Los Angeles, the Rams, not the Chargers, because I truly believe the Chargers are going to draft a quarterback. But you look at the Rams, you're like, okay, Goff's there. Maybe there's an opportunity to learn. You spend 1 year with Sean McVay. That could probably increase your value moving forward. Or do you go to a team like Baltimore, who kind of runs a similar type offense, that perhaps if something were to happen to Lamar Jackson, that Cam would be a natural fit to go in there and kind of do what he does? Or do you look at what happened in Washington? And I know that they've got Dwayne Haskins there, but could Cam Newton go there? Obviously very familiar with the head coach, Ron Rivera, and then serve as a backup. And then, again, if Dwayne Haskins doesn't work out, Cam Newton has an opportunity to go in there and win that job. So that would be, I think Washington's kind of one that I've been looking out for.
Yeah, Newton along with Jameis Winston, two guys who were high draft picks, number one overall, and now they're both without a starting quarterback job. So it's interesting how fast quarterbacks can kind of fall out of favor in the NFL.
Yeah, I thought it only happened to running backs, but yeah, the quarterback, Jameis Winston, he's like the quarterback version of that friend that everybody's like, hey, why are you still single? Because it seems like Jameis Winston should be a starting quarterback in the NFL, but those jobs are, again, they're starting to, even though it doesn't seem like there's a ton of great quarterbacks out there, you're like, well, where would he go? Like, where is he going to be the starter? And you know what? I don't know. Like, you look at Miami, and obviously Ryan Fitzpatrick's probably not going to play forever. They got Josh Rosen. Could one of those quarterbacks go there, and could they pull an upset and not draft a quarterback in the first round? What if Isaiah Simmons is still available to them? You take the defensive player, you bring in a veteran quarterback. That might not be the worst option, considering some of the risk that's going to come with any quarterback outside of Joe Burrow.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Miami does. You can kind of see Brian Flores being willing to build a defense with all the money they had. He started to add Kyle Van Noy to the team, Shaq Lawson. So they've been one of the most improved teams in this offseason. But another team that's looking to build for the future is Arizona Cardinals, and they acquired DeAndre Hopkins from Houston in exchange for David Johnson, a second-round pick. That was one of the most shocking trades I can remember. I don't know what your overall reaction is to the Bill O'Brien and the Houston Texans shipping out DeAndre Hopkins.
That's a dumb trade for Houston. I don't know how I thought you were very polite in saying that it was shocking, but Chris Godwin is going to get more in return for giving Tom Brady the number 12 than the Texans got for one of the best receivers on the planet. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I understand if you don't think that DeAndre Hopkins fits your culture or whatever nonsense was going on with that team. Did you not make any other calls around the league? I am sure. You look at what Buffalo gave up for Stephon Diggs, and I didn't think that was a bad trade at all. I think the Bills are in a position to win. Yeah, trade a first-round pick. Stephon Diggs helps your team. DeAndre Hopkins should have landed a first-round pick.
For sure, yeah.
And trade him, and like the 49ers, the 49ers have 2 first-round picks right now. Would they not have? If I was the 49ers and I had that 13th overall, I would have sent that for DeAndre Hopkins. Mm-hmm. I definitely would have said pick 31. And then you look at it, and you're David Johnson. You could have had Melvin Gordon for free. You could have had Todd Gurley for free. Devonta Freeman is still a free agent at the time of this recording. I might take all 3 of those guys over David Johnson right now.
For sure, yeah.
And I feel like when Bill O'Brien finally gets around to watching the 2019 film on David Johnson, he's going to be super pissed. He's going to be like, oh my gosh, I've been watching the 2016. It's like if you're watching, it's the difference between watching season 3 of The Office and season 9. It's a completely different thing.
Yeah, and for Bill O'Brien, it seems like almost this was, the first option he had. He just called the first team he could think of and made the first, took the first offer, right? I mean, same thing with Jadeveon Clowney.
It's the first team in the directory. Let me just call up Steve Keim. Hey, what will you give me for DeAndre Hopkins? And Keim's probably just sitting there laughing.
Oh, deal.
There was somebody the other day who was selling their beach cruiser for $75. And I'm like, hey, man, I'll give you $20 for it. Knowing full well they're not going to do it, and they're going to knock the price down, maybe to $50 or whatever. I would have paid $75, but, whatever. Let me see what happens. I got that bike for $20. So sometimes you're just like, oh, God, okay, yeah, you're going to take that? Beautiful. And so you look at it, and I'm sure Keim was just like, yeah, dude, I'll give you a second in David Johnson. And he's like, okay. You're like, what? Oh, yeah. Oh. And he probably sprinted to the fax machine. He was like, I'll send this offer over right now. Don't let him sober up. Don't let him, whatever was going on. Yeah, that's astonishing. Yeah, it is so funny. I didn't even think about that. Arizona, that would be the first team listed in the directory. Yeah. He just I'm going to start
down the list. And you mentioned Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, 2 guys who switched teams this offseason. And do you see either of those running backs kind of rebuilding their value to become a top 5 fantasy option this year coming up?
Top 5 might be a little bit of a stretch, but I'm of the mind that Vic Fangio really wants Melvin Gordon to be a thing. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that Melvin Gordon is still a pretty good running back. I love that he probably could have gotten more money elsewhere, but he wanted to stay in the division, wanted to kind of stick it to the Chargers who weren't, he didn't feel treated him the right way. And if you look at the Chargers' history with players, it's probably more likely than not. And so I think for at least a season or 2, Melvin Gordon will end up being pretty good. I know that Philip Lindsay will force his way into the lineup because that's what he always does. But I really do like Melvin Gordon, and I think that he's going to be a value. And he's going to fall, and he's going to tumble in drafts. And so I will be keeping track of his ADP and see where it lands. And I think that at some point, and it's tough to understand where it's going to be right now because obviously things will change after the draft. But, yeah, I see myself taking a run at either Gordon. Gordon is a player I would prefer because he's healthy. And really last season, it got away from him because Austin Eckler was playing so well, so he was never going to come off the field. And Gordon never really fit in. It was a circumstance of him not being there through trade. If he had showed up day 1, he would have been fine. He would have been an excellent fantasy option. So I think I think he'll be back a little bit. Top 5, maybe not, but I think he's going to be a solid back for you, especially at the price. Gurley's a little bit more of a risk because obviously his knee's there.
Right.
We're worried about that. But, dude, Todd Gurley made out because the Rams are paying him a bunch of money. He doesn't have to pretend that logo is good and be on their Instagram videos and stuff. So he made out like a bandit.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to be an interesting season. A lot of moving parts this offseason. Adam, I want to thank you for going over the NFL offseason with me, and best of luck in 2020 and 2021 season.
Thank you, Austin. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and spend some time with you. And let's make this a regular thing because I had some fun.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Adam.